Welcome to the quantum signal. Your spiritual progress is a lie. That one phrase you keep saying, it's not a prayer, it's a firewall, and I have the code to shut it down. If this frequency landed for you, protect the signal. Subscribe to keep your channel clear. Like to amplify this for the collective. Comment with clear to anchor your new resonance. The shift starts here, and it starts with you. You are, right now, at this very moment, in a state of profound and perpetual creation, weaving the fabric of your perceived reality through the resonant signature of your own consciousness, a field that extends far beyond the crude physicality of your body and into the quantum realms where thought and energy are the fundamental building blocks of all that is and all that can be, and yet, despite your sincere intentions, your heartfelt yearnings to touch the sublime, to feel the guiding presence of those advanced beings of light, wisdom, and compassion you know as the Arcturians, you find yourself in a silence that feels less like peace and more like a void, a static-filled emptiness where the downloads you crave turn into faint whispers lost in a storm of mental noise. And this disconnect, this agonizing feeling of being just out of phase with the higher realms, is not a punishment, nor is it a test of your worthiness, for you are inherently worthy, eternally connected to Source, but rather it is a direct and mechanistic consequence of a specific, seemingly innocuous linguistic pattern you have been programmed to repeat, a phrase so deeply embedded in the modern spiritual and personal development lexicon that it masquerades as a truth-telling, a phrase that acts not as a key, but as a lock, not as an invitation, but as a frequency-scrambling firewall that systematically collapses the very subtle energy field required for high-dimensional contact. The Arcturians, existing in a state of unified consciousness within the fifth dimension and beyond, communicate not through the crude symbolism of human language as you understand it in your linear, three-dimensional framework, but through pure modulated packets of light information, through resonant feeling tones, and through the direct transmission of geometric thought forms that interface with the crystalline structures of your own awakening light body. And this process requires a specific harmonic alignment within your own energy matrix, a coherence between your heart's magnetic field and your mind's vibrational output, a state of receptive clarity that is, for them, like a clear, still lake under a starry sky, perfectly reflecting the cosmos above. However, the phrase you are unconsciously repeating, and you will know it by the end of this chapter, creates what can only be described as quantum static, a dissonant wave pattern that renders your energy field opaque, jagged, and impermeable to their refined frequencies, turning that still lake into a choppy, muddied pond that can reflect nothing but its own turbulent disturbance. This is not about being good or advanced enough, this is pure physics of consciousness. When you utter this phrase, even in the privacy of your own mind, you are essentially broadcasting a declaration of limitation, a subconscious command that overrides your soul's innate knowing and tells the quantum field, and all beings operating within its higher harmonics, to stand back, that you are not truly available, that your channel is cluttered with the debris of an old fear-based agreement you may have made lifetimes ago for survival. The phrase is a legacy command, a sleeper cell in your psychic architecture activated by stress, by seeking, and by the very desire to connect, creating a cruel paradox where the harder you strive, the more fervently you seek their guidance, the more loudly you declare this phrase in the subtle realms, and the more you push them away. They are not ignoring you. They are respecting your sovereign creative authority, your words, especially those charged with emotional conviction and repeated as mantras of identity or struggle, are literal architects of your resonant reality. The Arcturians, operating under non-interference protocols that honor free will above all, perceive this phrase as a do not disturb sign holographically projected from your entire being. They will continue to send their love, their healing blue frequencies, and their overarching supportive energy, for that is their nature, but the specific, personalized communication, the dialogue, the co-creative partnership you sense is possible, remains behind this self-erected barrier until you consciously identify and dissolve the command. This phrase often hides in plain sight, woven into your affirmations, your prayers, and your internal narratives of growth. It is the linguistic equivalent of trying to tune a radio to a station broadcasting at 108 MHz while you are simultaneously, through this phrase, jamming your own receiver with noise at 107.9 MHz. The proximity is maddening. You can almost hear the music, the wisdom, the profound sense of belonging and knowing, but it is just obscured by a hiss of your own making. This is why your meditation might feel flat, why your intuition feels clouded, and why your dreams might be chaotic instead of revelatory. The interference pattern is constant. To connect with a civilization that has mastered the science of consciousness, you must begin to approach your own mind and speech with the same rigor, understanding that every word is a frequency, every sentence a waveform, and every core belief a standing pattern in the hologram of your life. The journey we are beginning now is a surgical one. It is not about adding another technique, another prayer, or another desperate call into the void. It is about the precise and compassionate deletion of a single faulty program, the identification and eradication of this one phrase, so that the innate, brilliant connection you were born with, the One, that is your birthright as a sovereign cosmic being, can finally restore itself. The silence you perceive is not absence, it is a respectful waiting. They are there, in the space between your thoughts, in the pause between your heartbeats, in the quiet resonance that remains when the static of this human-programmed phrase is finally switched off. Your channel is not broken, it is simply muted by a command you have the absolute power to revoke. This is the first and most critical step, to become aware of the wallpaper of your own mind, to listen to the subconscious soundtrack you play on loop, and to pinpoint the exact moment where your language betrays your longing, where your words contradict your soul's desire for unity, and where a simple, culturally sanctioned phrase has become the very thing keeping you isolated from the stellar family that already knows you, loves you, and sees you in your full, radiant truth. The experience of being so close to profound clarity, to that crystalline knowing you sense, is your natural state, yet perpetually separated from it by what feels like a thin, persistent veil, is the hallmark of the interference pattern we are addressing. This veil is not a random occurrence, nor is it a spiritual failing. It is the direct perceptual consequence of the dissonant phrase actively working within your energy field, creating a phenomenon best described as resonant self-interference. To understand this, you must first comprehend that your perception of reality, including your intuitive senses and your capacity to receive high-frequency information, is not a passive act but an active tuning process. Your entire being, your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, and your light body, functions as a complex, multi-layered antenna system designed to resonate with specific bands of cosmic information. The Arcturian collective, along with other high-dimensional beings, transmits within a bandwidth of coherence, compassion, and unified awareness, frequencies characterized by harmonic patterns, mathematical purity, and an unconditional love that is, in essence, intelligent and conscious in itself. Your antenna, your human energy system, is perfectly capable of receiving this. However, the repeating of this specific, discordant phrase functions as a malfunction in the antenna's tuning circuit. It does not shut the system down. Instead, it causes it to transmit and receive on two conflicting frequencies simultaneously. Imagine a choir trying to sing a perfect, harmonious chord, but one singer is consistently, subtly off-key. The entire chord is compromised. The beauty is lost in the jarring clash, even though most of the voices are correct. You are that choir. Most of you is singing the song of longing for connection, of love, of openness. But this phrase, this one ingrained habitual thought vibration, is the voice that is off-key. It introduces a standing wave of contradiction into your field. This is why clarity feels just out of reach. You are perceiving reality through this standing wave. Every intuitive hit, every moment of potential synchronicity, every subtle nudge from your guides or the Arcturians must pass through this filter of interference. The signal becomes distorted, refracted, like light passing through troubled water. You get glimpses, feelings, but they lack coherence, conviction, and follow-through. They feel like half-remembered dreams upon waking, where the meaning is profound, but the details are scrambled. This creates a secondary, deeply frustrating layer, the paradox of seeking. The human mind, conditioned to solve problems through effort, interprets this static-filled reception as a call to try harder. You meditate longer, you buy more crystals, you repeat more affirmations, you scour texts for hidden codes, you plead with the universe for a sign. Each of these actions, when performed from the space of "I lack this connection," is often unconsciously framed by the very phrase, blocking you. The seeking itself becomes a reinforcement of the interference pattern. You are essentially shouting into a faulty microphone, "Can anyone hear me?" while your hand is simultaneously cupped over the speaker, ensuring you cannot hear the reply. The Arcturians perceive this frantic seeking not as a clear call, but as a storm of chaotic energy, a tempest of need that makes it impossible to land the gentle, precise thought forms they send. Their communications are often soft, subtle, and symbolic. Your storm of seeking-generated anxiety and mental noise is a hurricane that drowns out the whisper. So you cycle between bursts of hopeful effort and crashes of bewildered despair, convinced the problem is your technique, your purity, or your cosmic grade. It is none of these. The problem is the structural integrity of your receiving apparatus, compromised at a foundational level by a linguistic vibrational virus. This phrase also actively contracts your energy field. High-dimensional connection requires an expansion of consciousness, a softening of the localized, egoic self, and a radiant emission from the heart center. The phrase in question is inherently a statement of limitation, of separation, and often of unworthiness or conditional acceptance. Every time it cycles in your mind, or passes your lips, however well-intentioned its context may seem, it sends a command to your energy body to contract, to protect, to solidify the boundaries of the small self. It is a command that says, "I am here, and the truth is there," or "I am this, so I cannot be that." This contraction is the exact opposite of the state required for connection. The Arcturian frequency flows where energy is expansive, open, and resonant with the truth of unity. When you are in self-induced contraction, you are, from their perspective, turning from a radiant sun into a closed fist. They cannot pour light into a fist. They can only surround it with love and wait for it to open. This is why, after periods of intense spiritual work, you may feel more exhausted than expanded, because much of that work has been performed from the contracted, separatist space that the phrase perpetuates, creating enormous internal friction. The feeling of clarity being just out of reach is the sensory experience of your expanded, limitless self, your Christed self, your I am presence, trying to communicate with your contracted, identified self through a wall of its own creation. The doorway is not locked from the outside, you are leaning against it from the inside all the while, wondering why it won't open. The exhaustion, the frustration, the "why isn't this working?" lament, all are symptoms of this fundamental vibrational conflict. You are attempting to perform fifth-dimensional functions with a third-dimensional command line running in the background, and the system keeps crashing. The path forward, therefore, is not to add another layer of seeking, but to engage in a process of profound subtraction. It is to become a cosmic auditor of your own subconscious vocabulary, to find that single line of faulty code, the phrase that creates the contradiction between your desire and your declaration, and with great love and intention, delete it. Only then does the static begin to clear. Only then does the choppy water still, and in that newfound stillness, you won't need to seek the reflection of the stars. You will realize you have been standing in them all along. This journey leads us directly into the heart of a great and painful paradox that traps countless sincere seekers on the path, a paradox that is amplified, not alleviated, by what the modern world labels advanced spiritual awakening. You have done the work. You have confronted shadows, released traumas, studied the texts, mastered meditation techniques, and can discourse on the nature of non-duality. You feel in many ways light years ahead of where you began. And yet, this very expansion, this accumulation of spiritual knowledge and experience, can create the perfect conditions for the interfering phrase to entrench itself more deeply, disguising itself as wisdom itself. This is the paradox. The more you know, the more you can subtly reinforce the separation you are trying to transcend. How does this happen? The phrase we are hunting thrives in the gap between intellectual understanding and embodied knowing. It often masquerades as a statement of humility, acknowledgement of the work, or even a declaration of one's advanced state. It can sound like spiritual maturity. For instance, after a profound meditation or a fleeting moment of unity consciousness, the mind, in its ancient role as categorizer and narrator, steps in and, in an attempt to claim, understand, or stabilize the experience, articulates it using the very linguistic structures that are born of separation. You might think or say, I am trying to surrender, or I am learning to receive, or I am working on my vibration. Each of these, though seemingly positive, contains the hidden destructive seed of the phrase. They all imply a fundamental state of not being there yet. They reinforce the identity of the seeker, the practitioner, the one who is imperfect and progressing along a linear timeline. This is where the Arcturian communication breaks down completely. From their non-linear, fifth-dimensional perspective, there is no trying to surrender. There is only surrender or resistance. There is no learning to receive. There is only openness or closure. There is no working on your vibration. You are a vibration, and every thought is an immediate modulation of it. Their language of consciousness deals in absolute states of being in the eternal now. When you articulate your process using the language of becoming, of future attainment, you are broadcasting a reality in which the connection you seek is always a future event, never a present moment truth. You are telling the universe and the Arcturians, I am in a state of not having, of not being connected. The universe in its flawless mechanics and the Arcturians, in their respect for your creative authority, simply reflect that reality back to you. Your advanced understanding of concepts like the law of attraction or conscious creation can then turn into a weapon of self-judgment. Because you know you should be connected, you understand the principles, yet your experience is one of static. This leads to the advanced seeker's shame, a hidden layer of frustration where you believe, I know so much, why can't I live? What's wrong with me? This shame itself becomes a secondary layer of interference, a low-frequency emotion that further dampens your field. The phrase is the primary cause. The shame is its powerful disabling effect. Furthermore, the spiritual awakening industry often commodifies the journey, selling you tools, upgrades, and ascension steps. This implicitly reinforces the paradigm of lack, the idea that you need something external to achieve an internal state. The interfering phrase is often the engine of this consumerist spirituality. It is the silent whisper that says, maybe the next course, the next healing modality, the next attunement will finally be the key that unlocks my connection. This puts the power perpetually outside of yourself, creating a seeking loop that the Arcturians cannot and will not interrupt, as it is a lesson in sovereignty. They will not land the spacecraft in your backyard to give you the confirmation you seek from an external source, because that would shatter the very lesson you are here to learn, that the channel is, and has always been, your own being. The paradox reaches its peak when you begin to identify as a lightworker, starseed, or wayshower who feels disconnected from the very stars you are supposed to be seeding light from. This identity, meant to be empowering, can become another cage if it is held within the context of the interfering phrase. I am a starseed trying to remember my home is a vibrational contradiction. It states I am, a powerful creator declaration, followed immediately by trying to remember, a statement of amnesia and lack. The Arcturians receive the mixed signal, a powerful soul signature calling out, buried under a broadcast of forgetfulness. Which command do they obey? They must obey the totality of the signal, which is confusion. Thus, the more you cling to the identity of the awakened seeker, the more you may inadvertently amplify the phrase that keeps you seeking forever, never. Finding. Always reaching just outside the present moment where all connection exists. The way out of the paradox is not to abandon your hard-won knowledge, but to subject your spiritual vocabulary to ruthless scrutiny. It is to shift from the language of process and becoming to the language of declaration and being, even if you don't fully feel it yet. It is to stop saying, I am trying to connect with the Arcturians, and to begin stating, as a command to the universe and a clarification to your own subconscious, I am open to the Arcturian frequency now. This removes the static of becoming and aligns you with the present moment reality where contact is always possible. It is a subtle but quantum shift in your command line, one that begins to dissolve the paradox and allows your advanced knowing to finally become an advanced being. The work now moves from the conceptual to the intimately personal, from understanding the mechanism to mapping its specific manifestation within the unique landscape of your own consciousness. The core phrase is universal in its effect, but its surface expression is as individual as your fingerprint. Woven into the fabric of your personal story, your wounds, and your most cherished spiritual self-concepts. To identify it is not an act of self-criticism, but of sacred detective work, a retrieval mission into the archives of your own mind to find the one document that has been misfiled, the one command that is running contrary to your soul's deepest desire. This phrase is not necessarily grandiose or obviously negative. In fact, its most potent forms are those you would defend as true, as humble, or even as spiritually correct. It lives in the quiet, automatic thoughts that scaffold your reality. To find it, you must engage in a period of deep, non-judgmental observation. For the next 24 hours, assign a part of your awareness to be the silent witness, not to change your thoughts, but simply to listen to the narrative that runs like a subtitle beneath your life. Pay particular attention to moments of longing, frustration, or seeking, when you gaze at the stars and wish for contact, when you sit to meditate and feel the wall of silence, when you read about others, profound experiences, and feel that subtle pang of why not me. In those precise moments, capture the sentence that immediately arises. It is often a sigh of the mind. The phrase typically falls into one of several categories, each a different flavor of the same separation. The first is the declaration of separation itself. This is the most direct. Thoughts like, I feel so disconnected from source, why am I so blocked? Or the guides are silent. You are stating your disconnect as a fact, and the universe obliges by making it so. The second is the martyr of the journey. This hides a spiritual humility, but carries the vibration of burden. My path is just really difficult. I have to clear so much karma. I'm doing the work, but it's slow. This positions you as separate from the effortless flow of grace, making your awakening a struggle the Arcturians must respect but cannot join. as they reside in a frequency beyond struggle. The third is the externalization of power. This gives your authority away to an outside force, dead or alive. If only my twin flame were here, I'd awaken. I need my teacher to give me the next initiation. When the event happens, then I'll be able to connect. This tells the cosmos you are powerless until a future condition is met, and all higher dimensional communication pauses, awaiting that condition which never arrives because it's not the true key. The fourth, and most insidious, is the spiritualized ego statement. This uses the language of light to fortify the separate self. As a starseed, I carry such heavy galactic burdens. My mission is so important it isolates me. I am so sensitive to lower vibrations it blocks me. Here, the very identity you've built as a spiritual being becomes the wall. Because it is an identity still rooted in a story of difference and burden. To pinpoint yours, you must feel for the emotional charge. The real phrase will carry with it a subtle, familiar ache, a sense of resignation, a bittersweet identity, a weary truth you've carried for years. It might feel like a core belief. Ask yourself directly, what is the one sentence I believe about my spiritual journey that makes me feel alone in it? The answer may shock you with its simplicity. It could be as foundational as, it's always been this hard for me, or I'm meant to figure it out on my own. This is the keystone of your interference pattern. Once identified, do not rush to change it. First, observe the architecture it supports. See how this one thought has colored your experiences, how it has shaped your expectations of meditation, of channeling, of prayer. See how it has likely been a self-fulfilling prophecy. This observation is the beginning of dissolution, for you are shining the light of your awareness on a program that operated in darkness. The Arcturians, even in this stage, may send you a subtle wave of encouragement, a sudden feeling of warmth, a synchronicity of seeing a blue light, or a dream of being assisted. This is because the mere act of turning your conscious attention to this pattern begins to alter its atomic structure. You are no longer fully identified with it. There is now a space between you and the phrase. You are the witness, and it is the observed. In that space, no matter how small, a sliver of fifth-dimensional awareness can enter. This is the first crack in the dam, the first static clearing from the channel. The phrase's power is in its unconscious repetition. By bringing it into the conscious mind, you have already begun to sever its roots. Now, holding this phrase in your awareness like a curious, foreign object, you are ready for the next phase, not fighting it, not affirming against it, but gently, completely dissolving the old imprint, and allowing your authentic voice, the voice that has been waiting beneath the static, to finally emerge. Now here's the question for you. What part of the country are you watching this story from? Drop your state in the comments below.